Some ways to stimulate referrals. Referrals don't necessarily just happen. They are often developed. Of course, most referrals come by virtue of the fact that the patient wants to render a humane service to their friends and families, and they therefore naturally and by their own choosing refer the people. But referrals can be developed as well. It is like harvesting a crop. You first have to prepare the soil by tilling and fertilizing, and then you have to sow the seeds and occasionally nurture them. Good service to your patients, of course, is like preparing the soil. That's first always. But only then can the seeds, or the referral concepts, be sowed and expected to grow. If you continue to sow referral concepts, you will then be able to continually reap the harvest. If you don't plant seeds, the harvest might be meager. Likewise, if you don't prepare the soil, the seeds you plant might not grow abundantly. Now, some seeds to plant are as follows. Whenever someone asks, "How's business?" reply something like this: "Wonderful. Thanks to a lot of good people like you who tell their friends about chiropractic." Now, this sows a seed in the patient's mind, and you expect him to tell others about chiropractic, and it suggests that he do so. Try to steer the conversation to the subject of sick people in a casual, natural way as you see the patients come and go each day. When you notice a patient responding, you might say something like, "My, you look well today, June. How's everyone else in the family?" If someone in the family isn't well, the patient might likely tell you about them. Also, you might say, "How's everyone in your neighborhood feeling, Mrs. Jones?" If you know that the patient has 3 children, for example, you might inquire about them by saying something like, "How are those 3 fine children getting along, Mrs. Smith?" If they are sick, Mother will say so. If a youngster is ill, immediately tell the patient about a similar case. You might even pull out an X-ray or a heart graft to demonstrate the case in a visual manner. When the patient expresses how wonderful he feels or how marvelous chiropractic is, the psychologically ripe time has arrived to sow a referral concept. Ask the question, perhaps, "Mrs. Smith, who referred you to our office?" After she tells you, even though you may already know the answer, you might say, "Mrs. Smith, you know now what a favor Mrs. Jones did for you. Why not be a good Samaritan and take the time to tell some of your friends what you know about chiropractic? You may do them the biggest favor of their lives." Then drop the subject unless they pursue it. Sometimes you might place your hands gently on a patient's shoulder before you let the table up. And then you might say, "You know, Mrs. Jones, there's sure a lot of sick people in this old world. If they only knew what you and I know about chiropractic, there would be much less suffering." This can be one of the most effective lines you will ever use, brown baggers. When you have an outstanding before and after X-ray or heart graft, show it to the patient. You might say something like, "June, come over here a minute. I want to show you something." Then demonstrate the before and after and tell a little about the case. You might even add, "You'll have to excuse me for bragging about this case, but it makes me feel so good I just must tell someone. And you are such a good listener." The weather, of course, is a common topic of conversation. But try to capitalize on it by tying the patient's comment with chiropractic. For instance, if the patient remarks about the heat, say, "It sure is hot, Mrs. Smith, but at least one good thing about it is that all these arthritic people feel somewhat relieved. Of course, it's not as good for arthritis as chiropractic, but very few people know that." If the patient complains about the rainy weather, say something like, "Oh, I don't know if it's so bad. At least it clears the pollen out of the air and gives a little relief to those hay fever, allergy, and asthma sufferers who don't know about chiropractic. I guess everything is a blessing of a type for someone, isn't it?" If the remark is about the cold weather, then you might say, "At least one thing about this cold weather, and that is that it stirs up the blood in the people who are always so tired, but who don't know about chiropractic like you and I." Now, do you begin to understand what I mean when I say try to steer the conversation to sickness, disease, health, and chiropractic benefits? Human nature being what it is, such comments will work for you in your town. Remember, though, you must give the service and you must have the patient satisfied before these referral seeds really start to grow. I have observed that many successful doctors who work entirely on referrals keep a list of prospective patients and note how they gain their names. These doctors use much literature and encourage patients to carry leaflets to their sick friends. The giving of literature to a patient for a sick friend serves as a reminder to that patient to tell his friends about chiropractic. Now, brown baggers, if you will pursue this same central idea in your locality among your patients with regard to methods of stimulation of referrals, then you will see that this theme, this general approach, this kind of suggestions will begin to inset a seed that will bring about many referrals. These are but a few of the many ways to stimulate referrals. Think them out. Think out the ways that you can use among your type patients, whether they be farmers, laborers, industrial employees, and that sort of thing. Pursue this kind of stimulation of referrals day in and day out, patient in and patient out. And all at once you will see that every now and then, every day or so even, there will be a new patient walk into your door directly because you have listened to this record and will listen to it again and again in order to develop out into your personality the ways to stimulate referrals by sowing the referral concepts. Sentences that sell. Remember the record, Selling is a Science, and keep it in mind as you listen to this record, since we are tying words and sentences directly into chiropractic application. The use of the right words at the right time is very important in the building of a successful chiropractic practice. That has been proved time and time again, according to studies made by our PARDs, by our PALs, and by many BBs in general throughout North America, and by all of our research in our 18 multiple offices for many years. You will remember PARDS is the abbreviation for the Parker Associate Research Director Staff, and it is to be composed of a group of cooperating doctors who pretest collective methods of practice building, office procedure, and professional salesmanship, and that they represent all levels of income, types of personalities, and geographical locations from the small town to the large city. The purpose of this organization is to enable chiropractors who use the PARDS method to know beyond reasonable doubt that the suggested procedures introduced at the seminars are applicable to the rank and file of all practitioners everywhere, regardless of type of practice, location, school of graduation, etc. Most of the practice building procedures are tested and proved by PARDs, as we've done in our multiple office operation through the years, before they're added to the curriculum of a seminar. Our house organ publication share carries many ideas at random from our BBs and others, and from running these in shares we then receive dozens of reports which enable us to determine which ones we want to add to the seminar curriculum. For example, of some successful pre-tested material, let's take the instance where you are endeavoring to encourage a patient to continue chiropractic care after his initial health service is over. You may suggest that he develop the once-a-month checkup habit. In doing so, the following sentences have been found to evoke favorable response when uttered at the opportune time. They are: many automobiles get better care than most human bodies. You have but one life and one body, Mrs. Jones. Better protect it while you can. You know, there is no standard by which the value of health can be measured. Without it, life can be meaningless. The graveyards are filled with those who neglected regular chiropractic care. No investment pays greater dividends than an investment in regular chiropractic adjustments. Regular chiropractic treatments maintain your resistance to disease at the highest possible level. The best health insurance you'll ever buy is regular adjustments of your spine, releasing nerve pressures. All other insurance is only usable when you become sick or die. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, you know. A stitch in time not only saves 9, but often a human life. For better health year in and year out, Mrs. Jones, you would be most wise to develop the once-a-month chiropractic checkup habit. Then there is this sentence, which has been very successfully used by hundreds of our graduates. It is one of those closers that is complete in itself. It is applicable on the telephone, socially, and in consultation. It goes: our preliminary examination is designed to eliminate patients we feel we cannot help. And here's another closer that is very complete. Early treatment forestalls more serious complications. When using these punchline, somewhat cryptic statements, simply make the statement emphatically, and then let a silent pause follow. Here's a type of statement that I use for a gentleman who lives at the Hilton Hotel, where we hold our practice building school and where we have our executive headquarters. I said, "The fact, Charlie, that chiropractic has stood the test of personal investigation by 40 million people on every continent in the world, and by important people such as Eleanor Roosevelt, the President of Mexico, Bob Cummings, etc., should be enough to merit your investigating it for your high blood pressure and heart trouble. Don't you think, Charlie?" You see, we had talked previously on several occasions. This particular day he was standing at the door looking out at the rain at the hotel while I was waiting for my car to be brought around from the parking garage. He was telling me about his condition, his heart attack, and other things. After making the above statement, I paused, silent. And then he replied, "You know, Doc, that's right. And by golly, these 4 kinds of pills I'm taking are certainly not helping, since my pressure was 250 over 123 last week when I was rechecked. But who could I go to? I just don't know any chiropractors." I picked up the phone and made an appointment for him right then. Without chiropractic, he will surely die, I thought. With it, he may live. So, proper procedure does save lives. Another statement that I made to Charlie as a build-up to my punchline sentence above was, somewhere within your body there must be a cause, and it must be found and corrected before you can ever get well. He shook his head up and down vigorously in agreement. It possibly helped to save his life by these proper words and this proper procedure. Another statement which could also apply to Charlie, I made to a skeptical gentleman in the smoker of a plane a few years ago. It was this one. Chiropractors do not accept all cases, but they help almost all they accept. This resulted in his taking his child to a chiropractor in the East. Now he is taking his entire family to the chiropractor regularly. He is a manufacturer, and we get Christmas cards each year from him, all because of the results of chiropractic and what I said to him in the smoker of a plane. You can accomplish much by making the right thought-provoking statement at the right psychological moment. When a patient hesitates to undergo an examination that costs money, you can say, I'd rather not have you as a patient than to fail to get results. I said this to a Mrs. Rogers, a member of our church a few years ago, and it resulted in her starting chiropractic care. She has since mentioned it many times, by the way. She remembered the exact words. Recently, one of our students, a young chiropractic graduate, told me he remembered this very statement made to his father and him when he went to his chiropractor a number of years ago. The latter, by the way, was later instrumental in sending this boy to chiropractic school, and he then became a student of our practice building school. Now these examples are only a few of the 1 million spoken and written words presented at each of our practice building seminars. They have been pre-tested hundreds of times in the offices and clinics of PARDs, brown baggers, and our multiple clinical operation for years and years. They apply everywhere, not just to some particular individual who has a particular successful method that works for him personally and particularly in a particular special area. We suggest you study them thoroughly, adjust them a bit to fit the occasion or your particular personality perhaps, if you like to do so, but make them a part of your whole being so you can draw on them at will when the right time presents itself. A buildup of this type of pre-tested material is what ultimately develops a personality that climbs the ladder to any level of success it desires. Re-listen to this record, and the record selling is a science, for they tie together. Re-listen to them often, and then try them. Won't you, brown baggers?